There's a pill that costs less than $1 and removes every gram of carbon buildup inside your engine. Not loosens it, not reduces it, dissolves it at the molecular level while you drive. One pill dropped into your fuel tank, and within a single tank of gas, your intake valves, piston crowns, combustion chambers, and fuel injectors are stripped clean of the baked black carbon deposits that have been strangling your engine for years. No disassembly, no scan tool, no appointment, no mechanic, less than $1. United States military ground crews used it on fighter plane engines in 1943 to keep pilots alive over the Pacific. Dirt track racers in 1930s America dropped them into flathead V8 fuel tanks before every Saturday night race. Barnstormer pilots in the 1920s carried a box of them in the cockpit the same way they carried spare spark plugs. Your grandfather kept a box of them on the shelf in his garage right next to the motor oil, and every man on the block knew exactly what they were for. This pill bonds with baked carbon deposits inside the combustion chamber and chemically dissolves them from the inside out. The carbon exits through the exhaust as harmless gas phase particles. No scraping, no walnut blasting, no intake removal, no professional equipment. One pill, one tank of gas, 5 minutes of your time. Then someone in a corporate boardroom did the math. The global engine carbon cleaning service market is worth over $5 billion a year. Dealerships charge $400 to $800 for an appointment that takes a trained technician 5 to 10 minutes with a spray can and an idle adjustment. Independent shops charge $200 to $500. Quick lube chains sell fuel system treatments for $100 to $200 per visit. A $1 pill that any car owner can drop into their own fuel tank at home does not create a business opportunity for any of those people. It eliminates one. They did not stop recommending it because it hurt engines. They stopped talking about it because it made their most profitable upsell disappear overnight. This is the story of the carbon killer that empires of profit were built on burying, and your grandfather never once needed a YouTube video to understand. If this kind of knowledge matters to you, the subscribe button and the bell icon are how you make sure it keeps getting uncovered. Now let me take you back to where this begins. In 1821, in a modest laboratory in England, a chemist named John Kidd was working with one of the most despised industrial byproducts of his era. Coal tar gas works across London were burning coal to produce gas for the new street lighting system spreading across the city. And the process left behind massive quantities of a thick, foul-smelling black sludge that nobody wanted. It filled ditches. It contaminated soil around every gasworks in the country. City officials considered it pure waste. Kidd was not looking for a miracle compound. He was simply trying to understand what coal tar was made of at the molecular level, and inside that black sludge, he found something nobody expected: white crystalline flakes that could be separated through careful distillation. He documented their properties meticulously and published his findings. The crystals sublimated, meaning they transformed directly from solid to gas without ever becoming liquid. They burned with an intensely hot, clean flame. They repelled insects and they dissolved oily carbon-rich residues with remarkable efficiency. The scientific community noted the discovery, cataloged it, and largely moved on. Nobody in 1821 could have imagined that this white crystalline compound pulled from industrial waste would one day become the cheapest, most effective engine carbon cleaner on the planet. And nobody could have predicted that an entire industry would spend a century making sure you never made that connection. Fast forward 80 years. The internal combustion engine is new, unreliable, and plagued by a problem that engineers cannot solve: carbon fouling. Every time fuel burns inside a cylinder, a small percentage burns incompletely. That incomplete combustion leaves behind a residue of baked hydrocarbons that bonds to metal surfaces under extreme heat and pressure. Over thousands of combustion cycles, that residue builds into a rock-hard layer of carbon deposits, coating the piston crowns, the combustion chamber walls, the intake valve faces, and the fuel injector tips. Compression drops, airflow chokes, fuel spray patterns distort. The engine starts knocking, power disappears, fuel economy craters. Early motorists had no solution. They could tear the engine apart and scrape carbon off by hand, a process that took days and required skills most car owners did not have, or they could live with an engine that got weaker every year. Then, someone in a garage made a discovery. A mechanic or racer or pilot noticed that adding a small amount of this white crystalline compound to fuel dramatically cleaned carbon deposits from inside engines. Nobody published a paper. Nobody filed a patent. The knowledge spread from mechanic to mechanic, racer to crew chief, pilot to ground crew. One box became shared knowledge across garages and airfields. American dirt track racers in the 1920s and 1930s dropped them into fuel tanks before every race as cheap performance boosters and carbon preventers. Every crew chief had a box. Every driver knew the routine. During the Second World War, United States Army Air Forces mechanics used them in the field to keep radial aircraft engines clean when fuel quality was inconsistent. Pratt & Whitney engines powering P-47 Thunderbolts and F-4U Corsairs ran under brutal conditions: humidity, salt air, carbon fouling at altitude. Ground crews added measured amounts to aviation fuel before missions. Maintenance manuals documented the practice. Pilots came home because engines stayed clean. In Britain during the 1950s and 1960s, motorcycle culture treated it as standard workshop knowledge. In India, truck drivers and auto rickshaw operators used it for decades to survive poor fuel quality and extreme mileage. In Australia's outback, remote station owners used it in diesel generators where breakdowns meant isolation. Everywhere internal combustion engines existed, independent users arrived at the same conclusion: it works. Now the chemistry. Carbon deposits are not simple soot. They are complex polymerized hydrocarbon structures baked onto metal surfaces at temperatures above 500 degrees and pressures above 1,000 psi. Standard detergents cannot remove them once formed. This compound is a non-polar aromatic hydrocarbon. It enters the combustion chamber with fuel. During combustion, it vaporizes and penetrates the porous structure of carbon deposits. It breaks intermolecular bonds from within. The deposit does not scrape off. It dissolves internally and exits through exhaust during normal combustion cycles. The military tested it under extreme conditions. Engines showed restored compression and improved performance without mechanical intervention. Modern diagnostic tools confirm similar results. Borescope inspections show intake valves cleaned from heavy carbon buildup to near bare metal after treatment. Fuel economy improvements between 5 and 15% have been recorded depending on engine condition. After the Second World War, it was sold openly in automotive stores. Then, the industry changed. Engines became more complex. Fuel injection replaced carburetors. Diagnostics became specialized. Carbon cleaning became a paid service. Now, the automotive service industry generates hundreds of billions annually. Carbon cleaning alone is a multi-billion-dollar segment. Dealerships charge hundreds per appointment. Quick lube chains sell repeated treatments. A $1 preventative breaks that cycle entirely. So the chemistry was repackaged. Similar solvents appear in branded fuel system cleaners sold for $15 to $25. Same principle, different packaging, same reaction, different price. Instructions remain simple. Drop 1 or 2 pieces into a partially filled tank, fill with fuel, drive normally. Over one tank cycle, the engine cleans itself internally. Highway driving improves effectiveness. The compound dissolves into fuel, burns, penetrates carbon, and removes it during combustion. For heavily carboned engines, repeated cycles restore performance. For maintenance, periodic use prevents buildup entirely. Small engines, motorcycles, diesel engines, generators all respond the same way with adjusted dosage. Real-world cases show engines with misfires, rough idle, and poor compression restored after treatment cycles. Fuel economy improves. Carbon deposits visibly reduce without mechanical disassembly. This is not a miracle. It is chemistry, a solvent interacting with a deposit until it breaks apart. Carbon does not resist marketing. It reacts to physics. Across history, pilots, racers, farmers, and mechanics used it without branding, without advertising, without service centers. Knowledge passed through use, not systems. Today it remains one of the simplest and most overlooked maintenance principles in mechanical history. $1, one tank, one process. And an engine that was once struggling returns closer to factory condition again and again.